Hey YouTubers, today I want to talk about autoimmune diseases and where they come from. Autoimmune diseases have been around for a long time, but recently the rates for autoimmune diseases has skyrocketed. So I'm going to talk about why that is. I want to start with this study. It's self-organized critical theory of autoimmunity, and it was a study done in Japan in 2009. And this website has a trustworthy rating. And what this study found was that overstimulating the immune system would cause autoimmune diseases. In the study, they took these healthy mice that had no genetic history of any autoimmune diseases and just kept on giving them vaccine over and over, and eventually these mice developed autoimmune diseases. So basically, like, the more you use your immune system, the more likely it's going to break. I mean, it's kind of makes sense if you think about it. So this is a chart showing autoimmune diseases, and before 1950 there were incidences of autoimmune diseases. They just set that as a base 100 for, let's say, that's like 100% at 1950, and since then rates have quadrupled pretty much, and from 1950 to 2000. And in that time period, actually in 1950 was when people started receiving vaccines. I mean, I think there's like a couple before then, but since 1950 people started getting a lot more vaccines, and there's also a lot more food additives, and smoking became really popular in like around 1970, I think, maybe even before that. Don't hold me to that, but basically there's a lot of different toxins being added in, and a lot of autoimmune diseases forming. So that leads me to this: can smoking trigger an autoimmune disease? So yeah, basically smoking worsens autoimmune disease symptoms, and it also plays a role in causing them, because if you're smoking, if you're burning and breathing in these ash and toxins, then you're stimulating your immune system, and you're doing this like every single day. So yeah, you're putting yourself at risk for developing an autoimmune disease. What about food? Well, type 1 diabetes has been on the rise. Just between 2001 and 2009, type 1 diabetes has increased 23%. And we have a lot of like preservatives being added to foods now, a lot of like food coloring, a lot of artificial sweeteners, and most prominently GMOs. So I think a lot of people will argue that these are not toxic. There have been a lot of study done on these to make sure that they are safe for human consumption. But even if they are considered non-toxic, if they're stimulating the immune system, then you're more likely to develop an autoimmune disease. And people will argue that these people, they're not exercising enough, or they just have an unhealthy diet, and that's why they're getting type 1 diabetes. While that may be true, the reasoning is wrong, because when you exercise, the reason that you exercise is because it reduces the amount of toxins in your body. You sweat out these toxins, and when you have a healthy diet, you're not ingesting these toxins to begin with. So you're not stimulating your immune system. So that's part of it. And then the GMOs. GMOs are plants that contain genes that produce pesticides, and pesticides are going to trigger your immune system. And people argue that these pesticides get broken down in your stomach acid, but that's not what the government states. Frequent or extended exposure to pesticides may increase the risk of developing autoimmune diseases. So if you're eating GMO foods every day, you're frequently exposed to exposure to pesticides, you're going to be putting you at risk for autoimmune diseases. So and then we'll just cover over vaccines. Yeah, it says, theoretically, if infections can trigger autoimmune diseases, modified forms of infections, immunizations, might also cause these diseases. So it makes sense. So before 1950, people were still exposed to autoimmune, or exposed to toxins, so they're developing autoimmune diseases. While these may not have been coming from every different angle, like vaccines, food additives, unhealthy lifestyle, not being able to sweat out toxins. before that, there was, people were exposed to lead paint, maybe like bacteria in the drinking water. There's other sources. I mean, people smoke tobacco for tons of years. So, I mean, it's not like these are all caused by one thing. There's a lot of different things that can trigger autoimmune diseases. But it's important to understand this because you want to reduce how much toxins you're exposed to, and we are way exposed to way too many toxins these days, and it's a serious health problem. I mean, if you look at these conditions, like, these are death causing conditions. Like, people are like so worried about developing like measles, which is only really life threatening if you're like a baby, or like polio. Like, these conditions are also death sentences and are extremely like painful and debilitating, and you have to be on like medication the rest of your lives because of these. So these aren't like something to just like shrug off. They're really detrimental to people, even more so than like having measles for 2 weeks. So let's and then I want to end with the genetic basis. A lot of people say like, oh, it's just like a genetic factor, but like, look at this: peanuts, tree nuts, milk, eggs, wheat, soy, fish, shellfish. Are you kidding me? People think that this is like genetic. Humans have been eating these products for like forever, and all these allergens just popping up randomly. This is not like something that's evolutionary. This is something in the environment that's causing this. So I appreciate your time for listening to my video, and I hope you learned something, and try to avoid toxins in your environment and stay healthy. Thanks for watching.